Okay, back to the old way of recording audio because the new way of recording audio simply stopped working when I started up with this video. So yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. But here we are with another new figure, and before I launch into it, I just want to say thank you very much to David Marlin for being my second longest contributing patron. It's great to have you back. So thank you very much for that. And anyone else who is interested in supporting the channel monetarily, you can do so through the link to Patreon below. There's a single $1 tier. That's all I got. And that $1 tier supports the channel as well as it gives you early access to new videos. So basically, I put out new videos on Mondays and Fridays. Patrons get a new video on Monday, and then everyone else gets that same video on Friday. And then patrons will get another new video on Friday, and then that video will go up for everyone else on the following Monday. So it's kind of a staggered thing. So yeah, if you want early access to videos, or you just want to show your appreciation with money, that is an option. Another option is there is a link to Shozi's Discord server down in the description, and Shozi is a pretty great site that I've ordered from quite often. It's overseas. They do free shipping to the US at least, and there's a paid option. It's a little bit faster, but it's not necessary. Great customer service, good prices, wide selection of stuff. And if you join their Discord through the link in the description, it earns me basically 50 cents worth of store credit for each sign up. So that can go towards more figures that I could do videos for in the future. So with all of that out of the way, 5 words. Netflix Siege Megatron with Reprolabels. That is what we are looking at today. And funny thing, I had the Earthrise version of this mold because I got the G2 Megatron, and I didn't really like it. I wanted to like it, but it's just the mold wasn't great for G2 Megatron in my mind, and like I didn't really like what they did with the head, and I really hated that halberd plank thing that I think was supposed to be evocative of the G1 sword design, but like had a tank barrel on the end, and it just wasn't great. But I watched Dr. Lockdown's video on great Reprolabel sets, and this guy came up, and when I saw what he looked like with the Reprolabels, I was just like, I have to get that, and I got it. And the funny thing is, even though I didn't like the Earthrise mold at all, I actually really like the Siege mold for Megatron. And it's basically the same mold, with the only real difference being how they handle the additional weapon accessory outside of the fusion cannon. But other than that, it's like basically the same transformation and all that, and I just think that they handled it so much better. I really like this guy, and with the Reprolabels, it is gorgeous. And yeah, I mean, as you can see, he is a tank, obviously, right? But it's a really good-looking tank. It's not quite Earth mode, which I think is great, but also still very recognizable. Works as like kind of a Cybertronian Earth go-between. One issue that I have with mine is the heels, particularly this one, are a bit loose. But it's annoying because it's only loose in this position. Like this one's a little loose, but not anywhere near to the degree that the other one is. And this is just unsightly and annoying. But when he's in robot mode, it's not a problem because the heels actually click into place. So like this is just a little bit irritating. But yeah, that aside, very cool looking semi-Cybertronian tank. I love how it's got the, like this design in particular, like the Netflix version, they put a lot more detailing and paint on it. But then you get the Reprolabels on there, and it adds even more little details. Like I love just the color separation here, how you've got the kind of gunmetal-y silver up the center, and then also just the big long tank barrel going along the center as well. But then you've got the tread sections, which are more black, but they have a little bit of this brushed gunmetal silver looking detailing along the top. So that kind of ties everything together while at the same time separating it out. I also love the red accents you've got in a few places, some of which are stickers. And those also just help to both separate out the color and also make it still look like a Megatron, because it's still got kind of traditional G1-y Megatron colors, kind of. They're a bit more grimdark and dirty looking in this particular case, but, you know, silver, red, black, that's Megatron. I also love that because of the way they did the transformation, you've got the rotating turret, which does catch a little bit when you start getting to about 45-ish degrees, but you can push past it if you really want. I don't think it's necessary, but you can. And yeah, I also love how his sword stores so much better with the Siege mold than it does in the Earthrise mode, because they're not trying to make it look like an Earth tank, so it doesn't have this giant thing to cover up the front. It's just barrel sticking out, and it just plugs in here, and it incorporates into the turret a lot better. And the only real bit you got to deal with is this sword tip sticking out of the back there. And visible robot crotch, but that's kind of par for the course. And also you've got visible head underneath there, but yeah, that's the underside. So yeah, I really like this tank mode. In terms of stickers, it has been a minute since I've stickered this guy, so I'm just going to try and go by sight and vague memory. But you can see there are definitely some stickers up here and here. Some of these are choices. I'm pretty sure there was a choice of what to do here, and I went with these because I just thought it was fun to homage the chest detail up here, which is why they got the little curly cues. Got some stickers here, some added stickers here for detail. And along the side here, you've got these kind of riveted plates, including this one. I really like this one, having like the kind of slightly blending in Decepticon logo, because you don't really get Decepticon logos anywhere else on the tank mode, so I just thought that was a nice touch. These bits here, I believe, are also stickers, pretty sure. And then along the side here, we'll see these more in robot mode, but there are stickers going along what is obviously the foot. There are supposed to be stickers here, these little red venting stickers, but two of them popped off of one of these heels at one point, so I ended up just removing the other two because I couldn't find the ones that popped off, and it was just like, screw it. So there are supposed to be red stickers that go back here, I just don't have them on mine. And it's the same detailing along here, and then along the actual turret itself, there's nothing on the barrel that's sticking out, but there's a little bit of sticker detailing here, and some here and here and here, which again we'll see in robot mode, and also along what will become the fusion cannon, which we'll also see in robot mode, and some added detailing back here. So yeah, it's nice. I like what the stickers add, and they look even better in robot mode, which I'm kind of anxious to get to. So let's just do our size comparisons so we can move on to the tank or robot mode rather with the quickness. So let's bring in Artfire and Rotor Storm. And while I'm putting these guys out, I should mention Netflix Megatron does come with some other accessories. He has 2 Target Masters. I don't have them with him because I sold the dog guy that turns into a sword, whose name I don't remember, because I just didn't really like that one. And the guy that turns into a gun, whose name I don't remember, I actually gave to Cyclonus, to Kingdom Cyclonus, because Cyclonus was a Target Master, and I just thought, yeah, I'll give this guy to Cyclonus. It probably doesn't work color-wise, design-wise, but I did it anyway. So yeah, this is just what we've got. We're not going to go over the other accessories for Netflix Siege Megatron. Sorry. But anyway, here is how he stacks up to kind of the average. And he's a Voyager. He's a pretty bulky Voyager, so I think that works out pretty well. Now let's get all of these out of the way. And I've got one other Megatron comparison I wanted to make because it's just a great figure. Another example of a fantastic tank Megatron, or Megatronus. And that is, pardon me, that is RID Toys R Us, the Toys R Us exclusive version Megatronus with Reprolabels. And yeah, I've said this before, but this is a fantastic figure. I know people like to make fun of RID 2015, and I get it. And a lot of the toys that came out of that were like, what were they thinking? But we all have to admit that when you take the blinders off, when you stop looking at it as, ooh, it's that cheesy kids version of Transformers where they made Bumblebee the leader and ooh. There are a number of really good figures that came out of that. Not a bunch. It's not as consistent as like, well, I guess I can't even say Cyberverse, but Cyberverse had some really good ones too. But like, you know, they had more misses than hits in the RID toy line, from what I understand, from what I've experienced myself. But the stuff that hit, it hit. And Megatronus was definitely a hit. So yeah, there is Netflix Siege Megatron with Reprolabels, with RID Megatronus with Reprolabels. Again, if you can't, get this guy. Any version, get this guy. He is a great... This is the Warrior class version. Get it. So good. One of the best tank Megatrons, if not the best tank Megatron, honestly. And lastly, here is Megatron, this Megatron with this duck tank. Seriously though, no amount of appreciation is too much for RID Megatronus. Now, let us transform Siege Megatron. And it's a very straightforward but effective transformation. First thing I want to do is pull out the gun. It just yoinks out of fusion cannon. It plugs in right in there, and this bit slides through the gap here. So with this unplugged, we can rotate out these sword blade bits just a little bit. You don't have to rotate them out all the way. And this whole assembly rotates up, and then it tucks back in and plugs in kind of along the side here and tabs in together. And that makes a sword somewhat reminiscent of his G1 sword. And this is a much better way of handling weapon storage and whatnot with this mold. This is so much better than what they did with the Earthrise version. But, you know, gotta make it look like an Earth mode tank, I guess. We'll talk more about this later. Now, for the rest of him, we're going to leave the turret like this for now, and we're going to focus on the legs first. So, I'm going to push feet up, and then pull the heels down, up and down, and as I said, they click in place. I just wish it wasn't so floppy in the tank mode. Like, they're supposed to... I guess I could thicken that up. They're supposed to tab in. There's these tabs here and slots there. I might try and thicken that up to see if that'll keep it in place for tank mode. Anyway, got the heels out. Now want to move the legs in at this hinge because they tab into the waist section up here. So move that in, and I find it's good to like brace this part with your thumb because this is a rotating panel, so you don't want to, like, if it gets caught, you don't want it to like pull this way because you could kind of see the hinge down here. So just grip up here and pull down. And that will untab from right there. With that untabbed, this panel rotates back, and now you can do the semi-awkward but still doable transformation step of rotating this whole assembly up and around. You want to keep this hip oriented as it is, but you want to rotate all of this around and then straighten that out and fold that back in. It is high Astrid. It is, it's a little bit tricky, but it's not terrible. So again, you can kind of see how this assembly is folded up. And I have to do this with a cat now. So you want to keep that hip in place and rotate all of this down and around. It's really not that difficult. It's, again, just a little bit awkward and a little bit strange. Then rotate the waist. And we are done with the lower body. So now we can move on to the other half. And this one is a little bit awkward because of how everything comes together. These thread sections here kind of pull up a little bit, but at the same time, not really. Like, I never quite remember if you're supposed to untab these first or not, because they tab in up here, and I think they don't necessarily tab in down here, but they do sit behind stuff, so flare those out, and you should be, yeah, you just pull this up, and this entire assembly unfolds, and then you can fold this up and back, and when you fold this up and back, you want to get it past the treads. And we'll just leave it like that for now. Now comes what I think is the best part of all this. You unpeg the turret section from itself. This bit kind of stays where it is. I can't remember if this is permanently attached. No, it is. Okay, you can pull this out, but it stays in place pretty well too, so keep that as it is. Rotate this around. Whoa, easy, Astrid. Rotate this around and it'll peg in here. And this bit folds down. And this folds out and gives you an arm. And now on this side, it's more or less the same thing. This rotates around and pegs in. There we go. Pegs into the torso. Now this rotates around, and that is obviously the fusion cannon. Fist flips out. And just to give you a better idea of what's going on with the shoulder, this bit makes up like the front of the tank turret, and when you fold this down, it gives this the shoulders the more kind of G1 styled Megatron shoulder design. I think that's really cool. Now you fold these treads in, and they just fold in like that, and then this panel will tab into the sides of the treads to hold everything together nice and snug. And then this all just goes over and across the back and sits along his back. It doesn't peg in, but like it holds in place really pretty firmly. Like unless you're picking him up like this, you don't really have to worry about it. It's not going anywhere. And that's it. That is Siege Megatron. It's Siege Megatron's transformation. It is pretty effective, pretty entertaining, and what you're left with is a really neat Megatron. It's kind of, especially with the Reprolabels, this particular Megatron he's like beefy G1, which I think is cool. This cat is so over the top right now. It's 1 o'clock, honey. It's not even close to dinner time. I may not be allowed to touch the figure because I have to pet the kitty. Anyway, yeah, this is great. And I love the beefiness. The tank backpack or tank tread backpack doesn't really bother me at all. And the way it all comes together and spreads out, I think is really cool. Now, one thing that does kind of bug me a little bit about the mold is the way he stands. Like, it's the way his feet are designed. This is as far forward as they can go. You can't push them any further forward, and it feels like they really should go forward more, because if you look at where his center of gravity is, his feet naturally sit a bit further forward than his torso. And like, you can push the knees forward a bit, but like that's as far forward as they go, which means if you want him to be a little bit more stable, you kind of have to hunch him forward a bit. And that's fine, but I don't really like that. But fortunately, because of the way the heels are designed, since they click into place, you can just unclick them. And when you unclick the heels and stand him up straight, you can see that gives him a much more natural kind of center of gravity, a little bit more of a hero stance, and I just think that works a lot better. So that's generally how I have him displayed, with the heels clicked down like that. And they hold in place too, so it's fine. But yeah, that's what I do. And yes, love this Megatron. The the mold does have this head plank issue where on some copies of like this doesn't peg in, as you can see. It doesn't peg or tab in or sit really. It just kind of, it can go down, it can go up. It isn't a great design in that regard. But this version of the mold, at least, they seem to have fixed the issue. I think it was mostly like the initial run of Siege Megatrons. But like with this one, as you can see, I'm tapping the head and that plank isn't really moving. So it's fine. Like you can rotate the head, move it around, and it might come up a little bit, but like it's fine. But yeah, this guy is really cool looking. And I also really love how the stickers enhance all of this. Like, it's a lot of small stuff in some cases. Like we saw what was going on with the arms, and we saw what was going on with the feet, but you get a lot more going on in the torso. Like the, particularly these red bits going around the sides. I believe this right here, this red rectangle is a sticker. Got the black venting details in the corners. Obviously, this whole thing with the curly cues is one big sticker. Astrid is desperately rubbing her nose into my arm as I'm reaching over her. And you also have these stickers here. So they add a lot. They give this Megatron a lot more of a G1 presence, and I'm really into that. And I know I complain about too much G1 all the time, but I like this because it's reminiscent of G1, but still not G1. Like, it calls to mind G1 without being super accurate because he doesn't have the barrel over the shoulder. He's a lot beefier. He obviously turns into a tank rather than a handgun. So I like that. I like that it's kind of a hybrid of G1 homage while still being its own thing. And also you've got the fusion cannon, which has this sticker detail here, and then these are the sticker details we saw on the top of the tank. And I like how this is kind of like a color graded energy bar thing. And yeah, just it's a nice set. It's a nice figure that looks great with the Reprolabels. And also there are some inner thigh stickers and inner ankle calf stickers. And just to give you more of a look at the feet, I also really like the two-tone effect that these darker gray stickers add to the feet. That's really nice. Just wish those heels were a little bit more agreeable. Oh, also I just realized these little black triangles in the midriff, those are also stickers, and this in the pelvis. One thing that I don't like about this is you've got the battle damage paint splatter on Megatron's underwear. And I don't like that. I tried to take it off because there's the trick you can do by using, I think it's like 91, 93, something like that, % rubbing alcohol. And it takes off battle damage and tampagraphs and stuff. So if you want to remove that stuff, you can. Problem is, I tried it on this guy and it just was not working. So I ended up just having to deal with it. And I may, at some point, if it gets to be too much, I may go in with like black paint and just paint over the damage. But with everything else going on in this guy, I feel like it's easily ignorable. And now we can talk about, yes, hi Astrid. We can talk about the head. The head. Which also is actually covered in stickers. There's, I believe the little eyebrow bits are stickers, and there are also stickers going around the outside of the head. You can kind of see that the head is normally this darker gray color, so all of the stickers give it more of a G1-ish silver sheen. Now there were options for like shiny black stickers, which you could do for like a more comic homage look, and I didn't go that route because I'm not like, I don't have that nostalgia for the comics, but that is an option, and it looks nice. It sets things apart and makes it look less like G1 cartoon, which is good, but this is the design I went with. Now, as you saw, the head is on a ball joint, so you can look up and kind of down, but not really. But if you push the plank in a little bit, you can have him look down a bit. If you push it down a lot, it starts to look awkward. And also you can move the plank up to make him look up more, but if you do it too much, it also looks awkward. You don't really get any tilt, but you can turn left and right. Because of the way this is set up, the ball joint is actually kind of towards the back of the head. So when you look up, it's kind of weird because his neck sits further back than it probably should. But it gets the job done. As for the rest of him, the arms can go around in the full 360 and can go out to a little bit past 90. Got a bicep rotation just above the elbow and an elbow that goes to 90. The fists don't rotate, but they can bend in if you want them to. There is a waist rotation, which doesn't go very far before banging into the backpack, but because the backpack's not pegged in place, it can easily get out of the way, and it still sits in a pretty natural spot, even if you rotate it pretty far, so that's not a problem. And the hips can go forward to 90, back to about there before they hit the backpack, but if you move the backpack out of the way, they can go 90. They can go out a little bit past 90. You've got a dedicated thigh swivel. The legs can bend in, but they don't really with this panel in the way, and also the joint is tight enough that you don't really have to worry about them flexing in on their own, and I really like that. The knee bends 90 degrees, and the ankles, you can adjust the ankle as I mentioned, and you can also point the toe a little bit. Can't go up, and that really stinks. And you do actually get ankle tilts. Problem being this ankle tilt is a little loose for me, so I had to do some manual tightening with floor polish, which is fine. But yeah, I wish that like, I thought I remembered like this is supposed to click in place to kind of lock it in the original version, and it just doesn't now, which I don't know if I like that or not. Hard to say. But I will say, though, that this ankle has a tendency to want to go like that when I'm putting them on the shelf, and I have to manually like readjust it every time, which is a little bit irritating, but it's fine. It's not that big a deal. And of course, there is the sword that we put off to the side before, and you can see that this has these shiny silvery stickers along what is supposed to be the blade. And I really like this sword. I think it's really clever use of parts to extend the tank barrel and give it, turn it into something interesting. So it's not just another gun. You can make it just another gun if you want. If you fold these out, you can have it like a gun with these two-pronged things. You can pretend it's like a gun sword. You can flip the gun back around if you want. But I like having it as a sword. And it can store on the back because of the peg. So if you wanted to, you could peg it on the back like that. Or you could peg it into any of the other ports along this guy. You could peg it on his forearm to give him like an arm blade. Which, looks pretty cool. But personally, I prefer to put it in his hand. And because he's already got the fusion cannon in one hand, I prefer to put it in his left. And there we've got Siege Megatron with Reprolabels all armed up, and he's a cool fellow. I really like this guy. I'm very glad I decided to give him a try, because it's just so weird to me how the Earthrise mold was a complete miss for me, but Siege Megatron is pretty freaking awesome. It's just so weird because they're effectively the same figure, but Siege Megatron just wears it so much better. Now, in terms of size, bring in Artfire. You can already see he is bigger than Artfire. Bulkier, definitely, but also a little bit taller. And bigger than Rotorstorm. Definitely bigger than Burnout. His face is hiding behind the sword. Oh, now Artfire's side. There we go. Now we can see everybody. So there is Burnout and Samus. So yeah, he is pretty big, and this is Siege. So I think this is kind of like it was when they were still in the process of making things a little bit smaller. And I mean, they're still in the process, but that's how that shakes out. I have to use one hand to remove all of these figures now because Astrid is back in my lap. And she is going to be a pain if I don't continuously pet her. Now, Megatronus. There is Siege Megatron, RID Megatronus. Two very excellent tank Megatron designs. And I mean, yeah, you've got, you know, big bulky Voyager versus RID Warrior, which is roughly deluxe, maybe a little smaller than deluxe. But I still love these designs. And I honestly have to say, as much as I absolutely do love Netflix Megatron with the Reprolabels, I still think if someone told me I could only keep one of these Megatrons, it would be RID Megatronus, because that design is just so impressive and kind of genius in its simplicity and effectiveness, and it just looks cool. But yeah, that's how those two stack up. And lastly, the Duck Tank. And that does it for Siege, or Netflix Siege Megatron with Reprolabels. I feel like the Siege Megatron mold is a very good mold and probably worth getting, especially if, like me, you collect Megatrons. I mean, I don't collect all Megatrons, I collect what I consider good Megatrons, or Megatrons I want, but for me this is a really great Megatron, but specifically the Netflix version, with its kind of darker gunmetal styles and colors and slightly more paint, and with the Reprolabels set, it just is so wonderful. It looks great, poses really well, transformation is interesting. I will constantly go on about how much I love how they handled the sword here. And yeah, it's got a couple of drawbacks, but they're not that significant, and a couple of the drawbacks are just specific to my figure, so if you decide to get one for yourself, you likely won't have that problem. But that is going to do it for Netflix Siege Megatron with Reprolabels, so thank you everyone so much for watching. Whatever your thoughts are on this figure, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. And yeah, I still, one of these days I'll figure out a proper new outro, but I still got nothing.